So, welcome everyone. This is Resume Basics and Formatting, and I am Kelly Coughlan. I am the Senior Career Manager with the Office of Career Services at the Costello College of Business. I am actually here tonight with Lindsay from LandCare, and no, we are not recruiting you to be groundskeepers. So, this is, and Lindsay can set you straight on that. So, Lindsay, go ahead and do an introduction, a little bit about yourself, your own career path, and then what in the heck is LandCare? And why would
Yeah.
you be recruiting business students and other students?
Yes. Well, thank you, Kelly. Nice to have everybody on tonight. My name is Lindsay Stup. I work for a company called LandCare, which I'll get back to. But a little about myself. I live in Maryland. I'm sitting out of our office here in Frederick, Maryland. So a little over an hour from you guys there. But I went to school. I have my undergrad degree in sport management, so business management through the lens of sport. And then I went straight into my master's in human resource development. And that is in my career since. So I work in talent acquisition. So the kind of difference between that and recruiting, which you might often hear them used interchangeably, is I only hire people for the company that I work for. So it's a little bit different process where I'm looking for quality and really specific person fit. So I spend a lot of time looking at resumes and LinkedIn profiles. So excited to do this specific topic with you. But the industries I've worked in have been higher ed, pharmaceutical, manufacturing, and currently landscaping or environmental services. At our core, yes, we make long grass short. We are a landscaping company. We work with all sorts of different commercial properties, and the bulk of what I hire for every day is early career, hospitality minded sales and business professionals. So we hire a lot of majors. We do not look for any particular major. We always say we can teach you landscaping. It's hard for us to teach you how to care about time management, how to care about building relationships. Like those are things that you are developing just as an adult, regardless of what you're studying in school. And so I talk to people from all sorts of different backgrounds. We go to business schools specifically very often because entrepreneurship is a huge part of what we're doing. You know, inside and outside sales, tons of things like that, project management, those are really the core functions of what we do just in the landscape industry. So we do plenty of pulling weeds and cutting grass and things like that, but a lot more to it just than that.
Perfect. Okay, so this workshop is focused on resume and formatting. We do have a separate workshop that is on writing effective accomplishments for your resume. Now, there are two parts to this. I am going to cover everything, but that other writing effective content is coming up, and I can give you the dates for that in a second here. But that is a separate workshop. Then you go way more into detail into creating effective accomplishment statements for your resume. What does that look like? And all that great stuff. So, okay, here is the overview. What we're going to talk about preparing. How do we prepare to create an effective resume? What do the different sections look like? Formatting tips and tricks, putting it all together. I promise I will not do death by PowerPoint. It also bores me to tears. So let's not and say we did. Let's do something fun. For starters, take a peek at this sample, roast this resume, we're going to call it. Type in the chat, or you can unmute and tell us what are three things wrong with this. So this is just the sample of the top, maybe of a resume or first half, or maybe it's the complete resume. Type in the chat or just tell me what are some things that are not looking so hot here. Yes, Diana, too vague. No details whatsoever. Ah, Riley, yes. No personalized LinkedIn. See, you have all that gibberish at the end of that URL, and it is ugly. So we can go into later how we customize that to make it look nice and short and pretty for a resume. Formatting not good, informal language, or just like, yeah, did other stuff. I love it. Lindsay's nodding along because she's seen this resume submitted before.
I wish that I was joking, but no exaggeration. I have seen almost identical to this.
Miriam, nothing quantifiable. Yes. Okay. So do not be I wonder how many people are on the call being like, oh no, that's exactly what mine looks like. which is fine. That's why you're here. And we are going to fix it up. So you do not have to put your personal address on your resume. So 123 Main Street, don't need it. You might have to put it on the application part of it, but you certainly don't need to advertise to complete strangers out there in the world where you live. Johnny Boy at Hotmail might not be the most professional email. So let's not. And on that phone number, there's some bad template out there because I see this a lot. The on the phone number where it's like area code in parentheses and then also a dash. It's one or the other. Either use parentheses or use a dash, but not both. And then as someone pointed out, LinkedIn starts fine and then ends with gibberish. I know that when you set up a LinkedIn account, that's what you get, but there is a way to edit this and make it look nice and short and pretty. Secondly, objective statements. We don't really use objective statements on a resume. And as you can see here, this is why. To get a job where I can gain experience and grow. That is everybody in the world's objective, right? And it tells the employer nothing they didn't already know. So why would you waste the most valuable real estate on your resume saying something we already know? We would probably work in a nice little skills section or a professional summary up there. So work experience, what grocery store? Where's the quantifiers? Help customers with what? What is the other stuff you did? And then skills, super generic. I don't hate the Microsoft Word. I do hate that they're at the bottom. So we're going to tweak all this going on, and we will fix it right up. So here are the three rules when it comes to resumes. Every resume has a purpose. It's funny how people will say, I have no interest in sales. This is sales, right, Lindsay? You are selling the product and the product is you. So we definitely want to make sure that we have a purpose to this resume. We're not creating a generic one that we deal out like a deck of cards and hoping some spaghetti sticks to the wall here, right? We want to be very targeted in our approach. We want to customize this resume for every job we apply for, and we want to reflect a lot of the keywords that are in that job announcement. You guys can be real dazzled by this next slide here. This is kind of what we're looking for. So we want nice, bold top Mary Mason, and then maybe city, state. If you're applying for out of the area, Lindsay, I don't know your 2 cents on, but I have certainly just left it off my resume altogether because I don't want any red flags with the employer to say, does she think we're gonna move her from Virginia Beach up here? Or what's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it really depends on the role. And if you can do a little bit of research before submitting your resume, that might be super helpful. I would say put where you are. And if you know that you're applying to a job that is not where you physically are, you can include, willing to relocate or looking to relocate or plans to relocate to a specific place. Sometimes it does get a little tricky when you put no location and you could be in a completely other country. And I don't know that based on what you have on your resume, because that very much does happen as well. So my advice would be just kind of feel it out based on where you're going, but include at least close to where you are.
Well, I've done it where I've left it off, but I've also done it where we're moving with the military. And so I know I'm going to be living in that area. So I just put that area because it is happening eventually. And then, kind of to your point of explaining, that is a really great place where that cover letter comes in handy because as a military spouse, I got to move all over the country and then restart my job search every 2 to 3 years. And so the cover letter was a really nice place to explain why am I job hopping all over the country? And there's a whole separate workshop we have on cover letters. So if you want to do that one, that would be great as well. Okay, so let's talk about, we have our name nice and bold. We have city, state. We have a phone number with parentheses or dashes, not both. A professional looking email, unlike our sample, and then a nice short abbreviated LinkedIn URL. And again, I'm happy to show you all how we can do that. And then we're starting out with like a nice professional summary. This is the Cliff's Notes. Here's what you can expect from my resume, not a generic objective that could apply to just anybody. And then woven into that professional summary are the skills. And so I like to, and Lindsay, I'd love to get your 2 cents on this. My feeling from employers and what I hear is that You want to, of course, put the skills that are on that job announcement. So if they're looking for attention to detail or they're looking for Excel or whatever specifically, you want to mimic that. But you also want to have not just hard skills, but a human soft skills on there, right? Because you could probably hire somebody to cut grass in your example
Mhm.
or do this or that. But you said in the initial part here, you cannot teach somebody to have time management. Like, what are the skills that you're bringing? Communication skills, getting along with others, conflict management. Say a little bit about that.
Yeah, I in my mind kind of break it out where the statement at the beginning, your professional summary, talk about those kind of soft skills there, where it says, I'm a detail-oriented person, I'm an organized person, in those one or two statements, use that. And then I would say in your bullets, keep those kind of hyper specific, like softwares, hard skills like languages. That's a really good one up there. Different things that you've done, just because sometimes those are easier to read. And I would be lying if I said I never did it. When you're reading a ton of resumes at once, that's going to stand out. And that might make you stand out versus somebody next to you where you're like, I need somebody that's bilingual because that's real. We deal with that all the time. It's a little easier to find that in something that's bulleted. So I would say kind of soft skills in those 1 to 2 sentences, and then more quantifiable, kind of hard software skills, experience kind of things in those bullets in your summary.
And I have seen too where people write their relevant skills, and unfortunately, they kind of do it in that paragraph format or like skills, straight line. And when you look at a format like this, if your whole resume is just stuff in one line, nothing is standing out. And that's why we're advocating for kind of using this approach where start out with a nice little paragraph there. And as Lindsay said, you can highlight some of your soft skills there, which this person did with their keen eye for detail and accuracy and strategic decision making and some of those non-tangibles. And then they use the bullet points to really hit on what are some of the hard skills like Excel and QuickBooks and things that you're offering there. Okay. And they just pop and stand out because those HR folks are real busy and they're scanning these in 5 to 7 seconds. And so if you give them the Cliff's notes and say, hey, I got everything you're looking for, keep reading, or at least put me in the pile to read later, rather than if Lindsay has to read through 15 bullet points to see if you're a good fit, she's more likely to miss something. And that's just the nature of the beast. So education. People ask, what order do I want experience first? Do I want education first? And sort of what we advise is if education is your biggest qualifier for that job, then go ahead and put it above your experience. Folks like me who have been around for decades, my education kind of heads more towards the bottom because what I'm selling most is the experience that relates to that position. Lindsay, any thoughts on that?
No, I would agree. I think too, as long as your professional summary is not super long, you're not then hiding your education. So kind of use that real estate as a distinction for yourself as well.
Okay. And then I see a great question here from Lauren. If I took some classes at another university but transferred to a different school to finish my degree, would you still list the first university under education? I have two thoughts. Lindsay, I'd love to get yours too. So we have a lot of folks who like transferred from Nova, right? So they got their associates at Nova and then came to George Mason. And of course, we put both on there. If you took some credits there, let's say I've seen this before where I thought I wanted to do law enforcement. So then I took a couple random law enforcement classes at this university and decided that wasn't a fit for me. Went back to school or switched schools and then ended up with my psych degree or whatever it is. Sometimes it's a matter of like, what do you have room for? What is this particular employer going to care about? Maybe it is doing psych at a police department, right? So you're going to be a counselor within the police department. Now it makes sense maybe to throw in some of that's, law enforcement coursework that you did before. But otherwise, Lindsay, what are your thoughts?
I agree that I think if you feel, if it's an associate's degree or just some other credits elsewhere, I think it's good if it creates more continuity in your story and it maybe answers questions based on timeline because there are plenty of people that go to school and don't get a degree, go to work for a couple of years and then go back to school. And so if it kind of creates a little more continuity, that's super helpful. I also think too, if you say like, I was at George Mason 2 years and you don't do a great job and explicitly say, like, Bachelor of Science in Business, then it's like, well, did you finish? Because you were only there in 2 years. Did you take a crazy course load and get a bachelor's degree done in that time? Or did you just take some coursework? So I would say more often than not, I would recommend to include it. Just tells your story a little bit better.
And like again, part of that can end up being what do you got room for? So I like it. I would say on the LinkedIn profile, though, it can always be helpful to include it there because when you are networking with people and you're trying to network with people who are alum from a school you've attended, that can be really helpful because it gives you yet another school to kind of network with. So our professional experience, this person worked at Macy's. What they have is some really lovely quantifiers. So every bullet point on your resume is an opportunity to not just list kind of what the job duties were, but what were the skills and the strengths it took to accomplish that task. And what were the results and what were the quantifiers and how did this help the employer? So I do get the question a lot. And Lindsay, I hope you back me up on this. So this person is a finance student, but they worked at Macy's and that was not finance related. So a lot of times folks will come to me and say, should I just leave it off because it's not finance related? And my answer is no. We don't really get to the chopping off phase until you have maybe a lot of finance experience after that. And then maybe it can go by the wayside. But I feel like employers want to see some experience there, but also so many wonderful transferable skills, right? So even I had somebody who was a bartender, I had somebody who was a waitress, I had somebody who stocked groceries, like all that kind of stuff. Show me that you've worked before. And then what were some of the skills and the strengths that it took to work there and accomplish those tasks? And so, Lindsay, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I absolutely agree. I think keep it on there because there are so many things that we look for that are not based on what you went to school for. So in this example, assisted 40 plus Spanish speaking customers. Okay, you have on there that you're bilingual, but what an awesome place to call that out as well to say this is a situation I've used it in. I think as well, you mentor new team members, even if maybe you weren't a manager. But guess what? Now you have formal leadership experience that is going to set you apart from other people doing similar that maybe just don't include that on their resume. And then it's like, well, have they helped other people grow? Like, what kind of social skills do they have? It answers a lot of questions that you might not think about.
Yeah, and we had a panel a few years back, and it was all these marketing professionals. And there was a person there who said, we had two marketing candidates from Mason, and we were having a really hard time figuring out who we wanted to invite for the interview. And they looked at the resume and they saw that one of them had been a waitress and they had also been waitresses. And they knew what the skill set was that was required and thought that would really come in handy in this job. So that is the person they ended up inviting for the interview. Now, had they left it off there because they thought this is waitress thing, it doesn't pertain to maybe the marketing piece, they would have maybe missed out on that opportunity. So again, I'm not really a big fan of chopping stuff off altogether. Even if you have some really great course projects you want to highlight above that, I would still keep it on there, even if you end up not having 5 bullet points about it, right? So there's our experience. And again, if I'm just going to read this first bullet point, but completed 100, there's our quantifier, online and in-store orders per day. I did it quickly. I did it accurately. I did it during a high volume holiday season, and I maintained a professional manner while doing it. It is really easy to keep your cool with one customer. It is not so easy to keep your cool in a fast-paced environment where there's like 100 people a day and a lot of them aren't very happy. I think that that really makes a difference when you throw in those numbers because I could have just said I filled orders all day and that is accurate, but that isn't helping your case at all. It doesn't give any meaning. And what if you don't know the exact number? You can totally estimate. I mean, it's not an audit, but I mean, we're not going to say, oh, I saw 1,000 customers per day and you saw like five. I mean, within reason, right? There's going to be some guesstimation going on there. In fact, I just met with somebody the other week who had worked in fast food and didn't have any numbers in there. And I was like, was it a slow moving place or did it have like a lot where you had to multitask and keep track of the fact that the napkins were out and somebody's complaining that the Diet Coke machine isn't, but also you have these orders to get ready and all that kind of stuff and all these wonderful transferable skills that happen there. Okay. Extracurricular. So one of the things that I have certainly heard from employers, and Lindsay, I'd love your 2 cents. We have kind of our professional experience, the volunteer and extracurricular stuff is nice because it kind of shows being well-rounded, being engaged outside of just focusing on your coursework or maybe just on work. And so this person was actually part of the Financial Planning Association. But what's really kind of cool is it's finance related. We do have a whole bunch of business related student groups on campus, and I'll send you the link for that shortly that you can join. But even if you were not engaged with a business related group per se. What if you were the treasurer for that group, right? So what if I'm the treasurer for the Spanish Society and that's finance related. And so I can even taking on leadership roles, kind of going to Lindsay's point earlier where she was talking about training in other people and showing leadership that way. Lindsay, kind of how do you view from the employer perspective of volunteer and extracurricular stuff?
Yeah, I agree with everything you said. I think the biggest thing for me when I think about this and when I talk to students about it is just be aware sometimes this is going to be the first kind of section that's going to fall off over time. So I would say keep it relevant right now. That's really the most important thing. But something that you mentioned, Kelly, is like if you're doing something that maybe doesn't align with your major, but it aligns with what you're pursuing, use that to highlight transferable skills. We talk about everything having a purpose. I think this is a really good spot for it. But if this one section is what pushes you onto an extra page, maybe we evaluate how relevant it really is. But I do think this is an awesome opportunity to highlight things that maybe don't fit elsewhere.
Yeah, and keep in mind too, when we get to that part in our resume where we do have to do some snip, that's where that LinkedIn URL really comes in handy because there is no limitation on that space on LinkedIn. So if you put your LinkedIn at the top of your resume, I had to cut out either volunteer experience or maybe 1 or 2 bullet points after that. I, as the employer, can go to your LinkedIn to get the full scoop, right? And maybe there's 3 other volunteer experiences that maybe you're volunteering at the dog shelter, but you didn't put it on here because you didn't think it was finance related. But now I can kind of get that full picture. So definitely opportunities to do that as well. And then we have our skills again worked into our professional summary. We already kind of chatted about that. Sometimes our coursework, especially when we're just starting our career, our coursework or relevant projects are our biggest qualifier for the job. And so we can sometimes loop those right under education before a professional experience to make the case that, I have the skill set you're looking for. I have the knowledge that you're looking for. And what we want to do here is I don't just want to copy and paste what's in the curriculum because everybody can do that and you're not really standing apart. And standing apart is the name of the game. What I'm more interested in is what was the case study you did as part of that class? Did you do a presentation in front of everybody? I just met with a student who was like, "Oh, I participated in this case competition and I finished third." And I couldn't tell a whole lot from the resume. And the more we talked about it, it was like, "Oh, and by the way, I had to create this in 3 days." And then I had to do a presentation before these partners at such huge, it was like one of the big four and all this kind of stuff. So there's some really great opportunities to work in presentation skills, PowerPoint skills, speaking in front of an audience, case analysis, case studies, any kind of research papers. So show me that you not only covered these topics, but you understood it, right? Lindsay, anything to add there?
No, I agree completely. I think it's another opportunity to talk about things that you might do in the job that you haven't yet done yourself professionally, but that you've still experienced somewhere else.
Yeah. And there's a couple great resources I'm going to share with you for how to gain some more relevant, not necessarily coursework, but projects that you can add there. Because a lot of times in those entry level positions, we sort of get in that weird catch 22 where it's like, we're looking for somebody with experience, but it's entry level. And how do I get the experience if it's entry level and you won't hire me? So I do have some kind of shortcuts there that'll help you out. Course projects, research, honors and awards, memberships. We already talked about volunteering. So contact information, we started this little recap here, but this is the most important. biggest part at the top of your resume. Let's take a journey away from PowerPoint for a minute because I want to show you how we customize that LinkedIn. So we're going to go to our profile, and then on the right over here, it says public profile and URL. And you're going to click that little pencil. Now on the next page, it says edit your custom URL. And you are going to click there. And you're going to play a game called Is This URL Taken Already? So you're going to take out all that gibberish that's at the end. Sometimes there's a dash in between. So take that away, see if it is available. And as soon as you hit save, it'll tell you. If not, add a dash. If not, put a little initial in there. It's kind of like when you're setting up an email account, and it's going to tell you all the things there. But that is how easy it is to customize that piece of it. Okay.
I will say one of my first jobs out of college, I will never forget this for the rest of my career. So don't be that person. I had somebody who used to call and their caller ID had their name as Sugar Dumplings, and it will stick with me until I die. So just don't be that punchline for somebody because it happens unfortunately
Oh,
frequently.
sugar dumplings. Don't
Yeah,
be sugar
not
dumplings.
sugar dumplings. It was yeah,
Sugar dumplings.
yeah,
But memorable, just not in the way you want.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Not in the way you want. And I am going to take a little shortcut here as long as I've got you online. I had alluded to this magic place where you can gain some experience to sort of bridge that gap between, I don't have experience, but we're only hiring people with experience. But how do I get that experience if you're only hiring people with experience? So, Forage is the best kept secret at Mason. What you want to do, again, you have access to this as a Mason student. I think even if you're alumni, I've seen people still be able to access this. They actually have jobs posted on here too, which is cool. But what I want to show you guys are these job simulations. And this can be really handy in two ways. One, do I want to be this when I grow up? Right? So if we want to figure out, I think I want to be an analyst, but I'm not really sure if I would enjoy it. This is kind of cool because then I can pull up, here's some analytics, and I can do some of this quantitative stuff. And there's different levels. There's intro, there's intermediate, there's advanced. Each of these takes less than a day to complete. And these were put on here by huge companies. Anybody ever heard of JP Morgan or Citi or any of these? Maybe a little teeny company called Deloitte here. This is a great way to figure out A, do I want to be this when I grow up? And B, let's get some experience to add to this resume that pertains to the area I'm interested in. So I want to be a data analyst. So what I might do here is complete this JP Morgan. That's going to look real pretty on my resume and stand out. So you're going to click there and it's going to be like, why do you want to do this? It'll explain. Here's why. Here's what you're going to get. There's usually a little, yep. There's these tasks down here that say, here's what you're doing. Here's what you're going to learn. Here's what you'll do. As part of each task, it'll take you a few hours. And then when you get to the finish line, it's going to give you verbiage to put on your resume, and it's going to give you verbiage to talk about in an interview. Is that not the coolest thing you've ever seen in your lives? So, other things that are really cool, I want to highlight, they just added a whole bunch of AI ones on here, and that is a real hot topic, obviously, and looks fab on a resume. So where I would add these is one of two sections. You could put it under relevant coursework and projects because these are considered experiential learning projects, or you can put it under experience itself. And then for the date, I would put down spring 2026, just like you do with your coursework. Okay. Lindsay, are you dazzled?
I love this. I've never seen it before. This is so cool and I wish I had it.
But of course, my realm is the business world, so I am focusing on all the business things. But here's like banking and finance. There's a ton on here. There's marketing, project management. You can see sales and military supply chain. I know that there was somebody who was OSCM on here, so supply chain and logistics would be cool. Security, this is cybersecurity, not like law enforcement security. Check these out and take advantage of that because I really do think it's the best kept secret at Mason. Contact, yep. Professional summary, again, summarizes a little bit about what you have to offer the employer, not marketing students seeking a position where I can utilize, gain real world experience and ba 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 ba. That doesn't help me as the employer. I know everybody wants to work here, so they gain experience. We can loop in some hard and soft skills there. And then again, put skills as a separate section, or we can incorporate them kind of into that summary at the top. Here's an example. Marketing student offering experience in consumer behavior, marketing trends, public relationships, adept in this and well-versed in that, with excellent communication and conflict management and ability to build rapport, active listening, all the things. Skills section, again, option one, we loop it into maybe that professional summary. Option two, we create our own section. I've also seen people ditch the professional summary altogether and they just start out the resume with key qualifications, areas of expertise, relevant skills. Lindsay, thoughts?
Yeah, I think this for me falls back to kind of what real estate do you have on the paper. I think there was an example, the first slide where the summary was like 4 lines, 3 sentences. If you feel like you're getting longer than that, then I say reevaluate. But otherwise, I think it could go either way. It's not going to hurt you by any means if you have it on there or don't.
Okay. And then here's some examples of what that looks like. So this was what we saw at the top of the example. And then option two, either leaving the professional summary out altogether, or this is a separate section underneath that professional summary. Okay. Education, kind of self-explanatory. I'm a big fan, and what I've heard is it's nice to put the degree first because employers are kind of concerned or more interested in what did you study, and then still list, George Mason, Costello College of Business underneath it. We still want to have that school name on there, but again, I'm looking for marketing majors. I'm looking for analytics. So that is kind of what I want to see first. On the right, not necessarily have to have your start date. I want to know when are you going to be available to work for me, right? So make sure you have what is that anticipated graduation date. GPA, Lindsay, I want your 2 cents on this because
I have a hot take.
because I hear
Yeah.
all the things. Like one of them is if unless it's 3.0 or higher, leave it off. And then I hear if you leave it off, no matter what it is, I'm going to assume it's really terrible and that's why you didn't include it. So what's your hot take?
I think unless it's a 4.0, keep it off. The
Ooh,
reason I say that is I've never worked somewhere or I've never, known anybody that works anywhere that really matters for the job you're applying to. And don't let that be the reason that someone gets picked over you. Because you might have a 3.75 and that's incredible and you should be incredibly proud of that. But just because the next resume says 3.8, don't let that be the tiebreaker. So that would be my feeling on that. I had somebody come to a career fair and ask for their feedback on a resume, and they had like a 2.7. And I said, like, please, please, I am sure you are still working really hard and you're still going to graduate, but take that off your resume. That
Lindsay,
is
don't talk about me like I'm not here. Okay.
I I was gonna name drop a school, but I decided not to. It was not Mason.
I was not always, I can tell you as somebody who was on academic probation, did not ever include a GP on my resume. I
I
love
can
it.
relate.
I love it. Okay. Honors and awards? Yes, please. Relevant coursework? Sure, absolutely. So here we go. A sample of just what we looked at there. For those who are in Costello, everyone's getting a bachelor's in business. Okay, that is your undergrad. Bachelor of Science in Business, what is your concentration? And then expected date. There's the GPA, you know, including both George Mason and Costello, as Costello is pretty well known. Experience, we did talk about this. Kind of, we can include volunteer work and internships and forage courses, which I just showed you, campus involvement, course projects, externships, micro internships. Parker Dewey is the name of the organization, and they offer paid micro internships. What is a paid micro internship? It is when you get in here, make sure you select for students, not for employers. And you're going to start here. They are going to list project-based assignments that you can do and get paid for, and that your time is sort of your own in that if you want to work at this project at 2 a.m., go for it. Here is a product you have to deliver. You still apply for it like any other internship. So you're still competing with other people, but should you get that, and they do have info sessions. So I would actually make sure to attend one of those info sessions because they give you some hot tips on how you can be competitive when you're applying for this. But it's so nice because again, you can work them around your schedule. They're shorter term. This is not that's why it's called a micro internship. It's not a 3 month long internship, 20 hours a week kind of thing. It is a project that you do in a short amount of time for actual companies and deliver. And like again, you get to work it around your schedule. So check that out as a resource. Everybody see my screen with our Costello student orgs. So here is just a list of the business focused ones. These look fab on a resume, but a lot of these are great for networking. They look great on a resume, but a lot of these actually bring in employers to their meetings. And so that can be really helpful. And then we just this semester put together this cool tool. If you are, let's say, an accounting person, here's some certs you might want to consider. And this includes Forge courses and LinkedIn Learning and all these free resources for you. Okay, we're going to put our job title, and we're going to put the name of the company, and we're going to put our location. I like having those dates right aligned, making it easy for the employer to see when you were there. And of course, we want to put accomplishments like you see here. So some nice quantifiers popping out at us. Provided project management for this, planned and coordinated and facilitated. There's 3 skills worked into that one. And increased enrollment by 50%. There's my nice little quantifier. 3 to 5 bullet points per experience. Again, we want to include relevant skills. This is why we're going to tweak this resume for every job we apply for. Right. So I used to work with folks who were getting out of the military and they would have the most amazing bullet points, but they weren't always related to the job. So that's super cool that you hauled dirt across the desert in wartime conditions, but maybe not so relevant to this business analyst job. Now, that doesn't mean that you have to chuck it all together. If there's something in that job announcement that says performing well under pressure, you can work that verbiage into that same statement and make it clear to the employer, why are you talking about this? Okay. So if maybe there's sometimes where you're like, this bullet point means nothing. I call it the so what. Read every bullet point and ask yourself, so what? Why would the employer care? And if they don't, what are some skills you could be working into that so that they would care? Okay. So here, there's even going to be a little link here, 500 action verbs you can use on your resume. Job duty versus accomplishment statement. So the job duty is waited on tables and served food, which is accurate, but not an accomplishment. The accomplishment version would be utilize strong communication skills, excellent order recall, and multitasking while serving 300 plus people a day, achieving a 99% guest satisfaction score. Again, aligning those dates on the right. GPA, we would move under that date just so if we're going to throw it in there, we're kind of conserving space. If we need to try and smash this onto one page and we're just a little over, sometimes reducing to a 0.5 margin can do it. Reducing the space in between degrees. I have done every trick in the book. So I see hundreds and hundreds of resumes every semester. And so we do every little thing we can to kind of get information, but still have some white space, but still make it look pretty. And again, kind of the rule of thumb, Lindsay, I don't know how you feel, but if it's going to go to 2 pages, it should sort of be kind of 2 complete pages, not like 3 lines or a quarter of the next page, because then it just looks like you're bad at editing. I don't know.
I would agree. Make it worth it.
I am going to skip this because we are running out of time. But here are some examples of working a retail job would give you customer service skills. Doing a group project could be project management, student org. Maybe you've done some event planning there. There is no perfect resume. You are going to tailor this. I mean, it's not like the resume alone does not necessarily get you the job, right? It can get your foot in the door. It can get you a second look. I would say this is a formula we use with a tailored, gorgeous resume, combined with a tailored, gorgeous cover letter, combined with a really great looking LinkedIn profile, combined with some networking, either meeting an employer like Lindsay and following up with her afterwards because you want to learn more. That would be a good idea. Or meeting somebody at a career fair. This isn't, I don't buy the hammer and expect the house to build itself, right? I have to follow up with this employer I met at the career fair, not just hope they were so dazzled by my resume that they picked me. All sorts of tricks of the trade there. Lindsay, what do you find effective when you are trying to tell the difference between candidates? Is it those who reach out and follow up? Is it people who what's your thoughts?
Yeah. So two kind of things came to mind at first. The first one being like your resume should stand out based on the content versus your formatting. Unless you are a graphic designer, keep it in all black. Please keep the font something normal. Like just keep it readable and having it just be clear is going to be super helpful. And then based on kind of the things outside the resume, follow up is always great. If you reach out, we have people, I work on a team that has, there's 5 of us that do my exact same job. We just hired somebody in a different location who connected with each of us. And I was like, hey, what's it like doing your job at LandCare? What is this person going to walk into on your team? Not just, hey, nice to connect with you. I really want to get this job, which is still a leg up from what a lot of people do. This is like advice that I'm always hesitant to give because I think there are caveats. Use AI, use ChatGPT, use it to say, how can I make my resume fit this specific job description? And just be very intentional throughout the entire process with who you're speaking to, how you're writing emails, like everything is being evaluated. Your resume, your communication style, all of those things. I think just the biggest thing is be intentional with all of it.
And we get into a lot of the AI stuff in that next workshop where we talk about formulating some effective accomplishment statements, because of course employers do not want to see copy and pasted bullet points, because it also, again, the idea is you stand apart. And when they're reading these bullet points that all have sort of the similar verbiage and the double dashed line, that long line that's just indicative of ChatGPT, you're standing out and not in a good way, I guess, because you're reading like everybody else. I've certainly seen like cover letter where the third paragraph of everybody's cover letter looks almost verbatim the same. I've seen it where the second page of the cover letter says, would you like me to add more information about George Mason? Blah, blah, blah.
Or it's still in quotes. Because if you
Yes,
tell it to
yes.
copy, the whole thing just comes in quotes. Plenty of that.
Don't do it. Don't do it. All
But
right.
use the resource wisely.
Right. For ideas. Generate ideas.
Yes.
Or
Yes.
I just used it with a student today where I can't remember they were like a stock clerk at some grocery store. And I said, put in this bullet point or put in this job title and say, give me 5 skills or strengths I used in this job. And then you can utilize those again, make sure they're words you've heard of and stuff so that when the employer asks you about it, you don't get a blank stare on your face. So you want it to sound like you. And we've also had employers say, gosh, this resume looked amazing. And then they interviewed and they sounded nothing like this resume. So again, you do want to morph it to sound like you, but certainly there's a great way to use AI for some ideas. And then I recommend creating what's called a master resume, where it's like pages long, everything you've ever done. You can have 50 bullet points if you want for every job you've ever held, and you're never, 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 ever turning it into an employer. You are keeping it for information purposes so that when you're creating this gorgeous one-page targeted resume, you can just go back to your master resume and take the bullet points that might be relevant for this particular job, morph it in with the keywords from that job announcement, and then you're not kind of starting from scratch each time. And final details. If you say that you are detail oriented and you misspell detail, you're not. Maybe that's a personal example. I don't know. Be careful on that. Have somebody else read it. The employer can see what you named your resume. So if it's called Blue Template 2 for Gold and whatever, take
Copy
10.
of tons of that.
Sugar, sugar.
Yeah. Copy of Sugar Dumplings, 2022. Yeah. Plenty of those.
Yeah, okay. So they can see it. So call it first name, last name resume. You can even put the company name there if you want to keep track in your own realm of what that is. And then, of course, convert it to a PDF because you're going to make this look so pretty. And then if Lindsay doesn't have the same version that you have, it's going to look like a hot mess. And that's not really eye-catching in the way you want it to be. So convert it to a PDF before you submit it. And as I just mentioned before, this is just one piece of the puzzle. We are going to do the cover letter. We're going to network. We can go into how we prepare for that interview, right? Because step one is getting your foot in the door. But once you get your foot in the door, we got to make it through that interview and stand apart in a positive way. So, just some final thoughts here. A great resume can open doors, but a poor one can close them. We do have an AI tool called Costello Career AI. It'll help you with your resume, cover letter, practicing for an interview, coming up with your personal pitch or the answer to the dreaded first question in an interview. Tell me about yourself. What should I say there? All that kind of good stuff. So there is a tool there that you can use. You can scan that QR code to gain access. You will get an email from a platform called Inspire. That's who hosts it. That would be how you gain access to that. And of course, we are always here for you. We have a couple LinkedIn groups you're welcome to join. One of them is the Costello Career Collective, where you can actually ask questions. You can talk with employers on there, all the good things. And then if you are an international student, we have a networking group for you there. And then finally, two more. We have a LinkedIn group. We're highlighting students who have found an internship and how they went about it. We post upcoming events. We post jobs that aren't on Handshake because the employer didn't want to have 7,000 people apply. They just wanted us to advertise it to our business student community. So we post jobs there. And our Instagram is pretty fun because we will post a lot of fun, lighthearted videos on resume writing and how not to answer interview questions and all that kind of good stuff. So check that out. That's it. Lindsay, thank you for being here with us. I
Yeah, thank
appreciate
you for
it.
having me.
All right, you guys, have a good one. Take care.